unfortunately, we don't control a lot in this country. We don't control the media. We don't control production studios. Maybe here we do, but we don't. We do. Here we do. Yes, ma'am. Here we do. And more of us are, thank God. But it's hard to control a narrative when you don't control. When you don't write the narrative. Yes. When the writers in the room don't have those personal experiences. Yeah. And to know that this country's been set up to say that we are not even human. Right? We're not human. Like we're not even starting from, hey, we were here. We are less than human. Yeah. And the first thing that was taken from us was our family structure. Exactly. And that family structure was taken because we are excellence. The excellence is in us. The healing is in us, but the trauma is also in us.
Welcome to The Nugget, where dynamic individuals share their nuggets of wisdom to inspire our dreams. We are here today with Assemblywoman Taylor Darling. Miss Darling, to the world, you're a public servant, a Spelman grad, a trained psychologist, but you're also so much more. You are an advocate for the Black family, a crusader for justice, and a retired nationally ranked chess player. We are so excited to have you here today. Thank you for being here.
I am so happy to be here with all of you. Thank you for having me here at The Nugget.
So today we're really talking about building blocks, the foundation of who we are for the family, for the self, for society in general. So where do your building blocks begin? Who is Miss Taylor Darling?
My building blocks begin with my amazing parents, Tawana and Ralston Burtley, who raised me not very far from where we are in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. We had a stint in Germany for a while because my father was a tanker. He was in the Army. And I have to say that foundation and those building blocks of being born of two people who really loved each other and were committed to the commitment that marriage is, really just set me up to be able to do anything and everything. And unfortunately, they're no longer with us. So that foundation and the trauma around their deaths and their loss has also shaped who I am foundationally. And I just have to say that family really is everything. And family can look like a bunch of different things. But I would say that for a child's perspective, the family and however they are received by that family, how they're loved by that family, how they're built up by that family, those are the first building blocks. Mm-hmm.
You know, when you speak about families and you speak about your upbringing, the first thing that stuck out to me, let's just get straight to it. You went to college at 16?
Yes.
I didn't want to go to college at 18.
Yes. So when I was 6, I don't know where I heard this from, but I heard that Spelman was a land where Black princesses went to thrive. And I said, ooh, I know where I'm going to go for school. I'm going to go where Black princesses would thrive. And my father, who became ill in the military, was very, very focused on education. When I tell you, I would come home from school and he'd pick me up from school and say, what is our homework for the day? And I would say, this man needs some hobbies because you should not be doing second grade work with me. But we had the chalkboards and everything. So he was with me every step of the way. And he let me know that an honor student is always 10 steps ahead. So you'd have those fun experiences where you get your science project and say, oh, I have 2 months to do this. He'd say, no, we start with conceptual design today. And I'm like, I am 8, I'm 7. I don't want to. But
what school did you go to?
I went to PS 308 in Brooklyn. It was a magnet school.
Okay.
Yes, for gifted children. Thank God it was there because that first public school was disastrous. Right. So much. My mother left her law background to go into education because she did not enjoy how my first grade teacher interacted with me. And just to have my parents really focus on education, it gave them the time to really parent because those schedules do mirror, student schedules more. And they just really poured into us. Learning was everything, anything from how this pen is made, how a journal is made. And we really started to take off once my father taught me the game of chess at the age of 4. That became our family activity. 5 days of practice every week and 2 days competing every week. And we would go to tournaments together as a family. And he said, you learn chess, you learn life. So there were subjects I wasn't great at, but I knew how to strategize. And I knew that if I always gave 120% to everything, especially the areas I thrived in, it might like kind of push that math brain kind of out of the center, that I would wind up where I was supposed to wind up. So I did wind up in Spelman, and I wound up there 2 years early. So
I want to go a little bit deeper at that point, if I can. When you say, okay, you guys started, you have a sister,
yes.
right? Yeah. So you all are going deep into chess at the age of 4. I'm wondering, is that more of like a Joe Jackson type upbringing or a Richard Williams, Serena Venus type upbringing? Like, is there love there? Is it about curiosity and raising a kid, or is it about making a chess master?
Oh, that is a really great question. It was definitely a labor of love. So my dad was a British citizen. So I think even just having that experience, very different than the American experience of being Black here, right? So he approached it with a curiosity. He approached it from a space of, I want you both to be greater than I am. And I have the foundational knowledge, but you're going to be in Brighton Beach learning from Russians. You're going to be here learning from grandmasters because you're going to surpass me. And that's exactly what we were able to do. So I didn't enjoy chess that much. I did feel like in my head some days it was a Joe Jackson experience because I didn't want to be there. But not for my father. He was very loving, but he knew the discipline that was
involved with
that was needed
to be excellent.
Yeah, and that's my word, excellence, right? We were on a very strict schedule, and I just said he would have to put fashion in it. He would have to say, okay, if you win this next game, I'll buy you that bag you wanted from Walgreens. I was like, thank God, give me something to relate to.
Yeah.
I wanted to play the drums. I wanted to do different things, but he knew he wasn't going to be here very long on this earth once he became ill, and he needed me to know how to navigate this world.
So it was a gift.
It was a gift. It was definitely a gift, but a loving, loving gift. Very loving man.
Are you enjoying the conversation? Please like and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications and be the first to know when new episodes drop. Please comment below.
Obviously, you know what a privilege that was to grow up in a 2-parent home.
Yeah.
Do you recognize like maybe the benefits you had growing up in a 2-family home?
1,000,000,000%.
Yeah.
So much so that shaped what I wanted to do with my life, which was I wanted to create and nurture more healthy 2-parent households. And I say healthy.
Black households.
Yes. And in any household, because the most important thing, I remember someone said, Mother Teresa said one day, everyone would come up to her and say, what can I do to help your cause? What can I do to be more like you? And she would say, go home and love your family.
Wow.
The more people who receive that again, the foundation, those building blocks, the more people that receive that, the less that we're going to see or feel the impact of the inequities that so many of us face. And I have a unique experience because I went from a healthy, functional 2-parent household with illness. So there was definitely trauma and sadness there, to not having that. And it was a very cold shadow to be in. Like,
as someone who didn't, I grew up in 2 separate homes and primarily being raised by my father. I want to go a little deeper into that because I do feel like I didn't really realize that until I was in my 30s, like the benefits of growing up in a 2-family home. Do you feel like, because I know that's part of your mission in life too, right? Do you feel like people who don't have a disadvantage in life right away, that it's not, I guess, because there's people who grow up in foster care or like they lose a parent early on or something like that. Do you feel like they can't be set up with the tools that you had in a 2-family home?
I would say, again, my experience is very unique. So is yours, being raised primarily by your father, right? But I was a child my dad died when I was 10. So when I say I've had all these different perspectives to grow up with 2 parents, then lose a parent and have just a mom by herself. I want to just go on record and say Black women sometimes become single mothers, not because we can't find mates, but because people die and people unfortunately get imprisoned. And there are a lot of reasons why you could wind up in that dynamic. But I do feel like, yes, I've been given a lot of advantages because I had a healthy 2-parent household. I want to preface that as well.
That's important.
I have seen a lot of 2-parent households where I'm like, you two might need to do a garage house
And
situation.
define healthy for us. Is that like mom and dad were kissing, or they just didn't argue in front of the kids? Like, what is healthy?
Functionality. If they need to see disagreements. I think that children need to see how we work through disagreements, right? Yeah. But we need to see disagreements in a fair way. My husband and I were just discussing this driving here. We don't have our own rules of engagement set up, and we need to set those up because we've had some disagreements in spaces where I said, I don't think I'd want my child disagreeing with their partner the way you and I are disagreeing with each other. So I want to make sure that we have these rules of engagement where if you ask me to stop, I stop. So it is not to say that there are not issues and there are not obstacles that we overcome, but we're doing it as a family. We're doing it in a respectful way most of the time. We're giving each other grace and love, and we're committed to it. You know, there are no outside parties there. You know, if we're dealing with individual things like addictions, if we're dealing with things like that, that we're in a space where it's safe enough for us to say, this is us, this is our unit, and we're committed to doing what we can to make it work. Healthy does not mean, it definitely doesn't mean perfect. It definitely doesn't mean without obstacles or challenges. But you know a space when you walk into it and it feels safe. It feels like, okay, even if something was tossed towards us, we'd be able to work on this. And we're not really open enough to give each other those tools and to know that a marriage or a partnership needs that knowledge base. We're not born just knowing how to communicate and how to work with one another.
Where do you get it?
Resources, I think modeling, looking at those marriages and those partnerships that when you walk into their home, you feel good, you feel safe, asking them what works. We need to ask questions, 1. 2, I think faith can be a great place where we can look for principles that would, you know, provide protections around different things like that. There are reasons that, you know, there are some beliefs that say, hey, you shouldn't really be having sex outside of marriage. There are reasons for that because a whole bunch of things can happen that we may not be prepared for because we don't have that foundation set up, or that we should not, you know, invite other people into our partnerships without the other person knowing, because again, it's a lot harder to build a structure that is going to give us the best results and the best positive outcomes if we are not mindful of how our actions and their consequences can impact those around us. And that's before we even bring children into this, right? So I would say that yes, to your question, I've been given those advantages of growing up in a healthy 2-parent household partially, but I know people who grew up in foster care and they were placed with amazing foster parents where I'm like, I'm going to take amazing, and that's why I said families can come in all shapes and sizes.
Because you always hear the bad about foster care and foster upbringings. I've never heard of a good story from it.
I'm glad you said that, Mike, because I am the chairwoman of the subcommittee of foster care for the state of New York. And we are,
Ms. Chairwoman.
Yes. And we are, and I didn't know why I was placed in that space because I didn't have a lot of experience with foster care, but God puts you where you need to be, right? And we're working on creating PSAs right now. So I think we have some names that people will be excited who grew up in foster care and had positive experiences. One of them is DMC from Run DMC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he grew up in foster care and his parents were really nurturing and look at what he's accomplished in his life.
Like you said, like changing the narrative on a lot of these things, like changing the narrative on foster care, also co-parenting, healthy co-parenting, because if people only think that coming from a two-parent home is the only way for your child to be successful in these things, it adds an extra layer of pressure. I have a friend right now who is a young mom, well, late 20s, not that young, but she's co-parenting. She has a lot of guilt because they didn't work out. And she just feels like, I can't do this. I can't do that. I want my son, I feel bad because my son may think that, you know, he's going to hate me one day. I'm like, I think he will love you more because he sees 2 healthy co-parents rather than seeing 2 people who hated each other in the relationship or didn't like each other. So I think that just changing these narratives can be so important and showcasing this more versus only showing, hey, if you, because then I walk around like, oh, I didn't grow up like that. It's like, showing that.
And that's when I say we need to be curious. We need to be kind to ourselves, to each other, and we need to show that grace and mercy because there are a lot of things that will happen to us that are beyond our control, right? And these narratives, they do have a way of making us feel small if we don't measure up to what the ideal is. So please let your friend know for her to do the best she can and for her to pour into herself and her child, and he's going to do great.
I also wonder, though, I feel like, do you think with the Black family, when you talked about healthy modeling, I feel like specifically for Black people, we look to pop culture for our models for so much. So when people be like, what happened to the Cosby family? We know what happened to the Cosbys. Like, what happened, Fresh Prince. We look to these people and we're like, those were the Black family. But that was really never our reality because we were always dealing with systemic injustice. Maybe you did grow up with, a stay-at-home mom and then your father was a Black judge and you had a cousin that came from Philadelphia. Maybe. But it's like, really, for most of us, that narrative, it looks so different because of the systems that we are surrounded by, because of the baggage baggage that we come with. So where should we be looking other than the Nipsey and Lauren Londons, the people that we make these models, or the rapper, the baby mama rapper, whoever we're looking at, like who should we be looking towards
I would
to
say
find those narratives?
Let's start in our families and let's start in our
Our
communities.
own families.
Yes. Let's if we're fortunate to have a couple or two couples, let's start in our families and let's start in our communities. We want to be in spaces where we can kind of touch and question our models. But I think that what Fresh Prince and the Cosby Show did for us was showed us that it was possible.
Yes.
And because, unfortunately, we don't control a lot in this country. We don't control the media. We don't control production studios. Maybe here we do, but we don't. We do.
Here we do.
Here we
Yes,
do.
ma'am. Here we do.
And more of us are, thank God. But it's hard to control a narrative when you don't control.
When you don't write the narrative.
When
Yes.
the writers in the room
Don't
don't
look
have
look
those
like
personal
you.
experiences.
Yeah.
And to know that this country's been set up to say that we are not even human, right? We're not human. Like we're not even starting from, hey, we were here. We are less than human.
Yeah.
And the first thing that was taken from us was our family structure.
Exactly.
Do you have an audio podcast? Are you looking to grow your audience? Partner with Prosper Digital TV, a virtual and full-service video production company. Visit www.prosperdigital.tv or call 718-622-0062 to get started today.
And that family structure was taken because we are excellence. The excellence is in us. The healing is in us, but the trauma is also in us, right?
Yeah.
Those moments where you feel bad or you don't know why. We carry that. We're talking 400 plus years of inadequacies that have been pushed on us, not because we were inadequate, but because people did not want us to actualize our excellence and our power. And that is still the world that we live in, maybe more.
And if you also listen to what people say a lot of times, you'll hear, for me, my grandparents are everything. They've been married for, I guess, over 40, 70 years now.
Wow.
And so still rocking. And I know my grandmother get on his nerves. I
Yep.
know it. But, I know it. I
That's
see it. But, I think a lot of us, I hear that a lot, especially with millennials. It's like, well, my grandparents, they never talk about their parents, but they always skip to their grandparents because it's a level of loyalty and I think love that that generation had that you don't really see as often as you used to within the Black community. But our grandparents, for me, that is what the kind of love I want. It was a different kind of love. It set the tone. And when I date now, I don't think about I don't look at celebrities and so I'm like, well, my grandma, my grandfather are.
There you go, models within
They
the
are
family.
the models.
Yeah.
I didn't. To me, I watched the Cosby's and seen that. So, but it didn't feel
Resonate.
it didn't resonate. It didn't feel natural to me to say that was it when I had it at home.
Yep.
My grandparents were that, and I wonder, how we can recreate that. Because now our grandparents are getting older, right?
Yep.
And now the younger generation, who are they going to look to, or what are they going to watch to kind of find that or kind of define the families they want if they see so many images in pop culture, which is kind of what they use social media, use all these different spaces to influence a lot of what they want, what they do. So it's like, how can we kind of change that narrative and help them?
Tell the stories. That was one project that I was working on. I have a couple that I love who's in my district, two of my constituents, and I just feel so amazing whenever I go in their home. And I said, your marriage is so beautiful. They are still so in love with each other. Their kids are in love with each other. And I just said, I would love to have you on Tuesdays with Taylor and just speak to you about this because I want to put that, I want that story front and center.
What's Tuesdays with Taylor?
Tuesdays with Taylor is like a segment that we have because there were so many things and so many industries that people were curious about, so many topics people were curious about, and I needed a platform to bring it up. So that was our.
Love that.
It's on
that was-
social media or?
Yes, social media,
find it.
YouTube, Tuesdays with Taylor, and they were going to come on, and then for the protection of their marriage, they decided not to,
Wow.
and that did make
That
me a little
happened.
baby sad.
Yep.
But I said, you know
But
what?
the principle is
Whatever
even
worked, but so I think that we need to tell those stories.
But that's what happens in a Black home. I know I grew up in it. What goes on in my house stays in my house.
True.
And see, when you
And that
have
doesn't help
that,
us.
that if you live by that, it's like we won't know.
Yep.
You don't know. I probably don't even know half the stuff my grandparents went through. But I do wish, I was just sharing with them earlier. I watch a lot of the round tables where they're talking about these things. I love hearing people's stories.
Me too.
I want to hear more. When
too.
you were telling me about your Black love story, I'm like, let's
Let's talk
unpack
about
that. Let's
Yep.
unpack.
No,
I want to
love
be
that.
inspired.
Yep.
You know.
And I want to touch on what you were saying about that that gap in our generations, right? Intergenerationality is so important. I think that we've stopped talking to our grandparents. I love that you speak to yours. I think that we've stopped looking to them for wisdom. They've stopped kind of communicating with us because we have phones in our hands and we feel like we have all the information in the world.
There's a generational gap.
A huge generational gap.
Absolutely.
And that gap and the opportunities, real and imagined, that we have, I think are a large reason why we don't see marriages, going the distance, because we think we have all of these options and opportunities. Women are able to work and support themselves on one income. That was not always the case, especially in the Black family. They needed or often to rely on two incomes to be able to support their families, but what they did not have that we have is the internet. So social media, as great as it is and as great as that platform can be utilized, you are showing me what you want me to see. You are showing me instantaneous things, easy things, things that make me feel good for clickbait. And I say, God, if it's not that easy, or if my situation is not as easy, I don't want it, or it's not working. Or, okay, this celebrity got divorced too and they seem to be thriving. I'm going to go and do that. Those images were not allowed to influence.
So so you idolize your grandparents' relationship, right? And you were talking about how kids now are idolizing celebrities, right? So where's the middle?
Absolutely.
Because they're too far away from each other.
I think what you guys are doing right now is the middle. The wisdom and inspiration and nuggets of wisdom. Like, we can control that narrative a little bit more. And you'll see that when you do see those couples that actually are really transparent and are really working on things and their content is really substantive, you see how people really are thirsty for that. Like, they run to that to say, I want to see what's going on. Like, we can talk about Jada Pinkett.
It's the stress that just entered your body.
I would say maybe not as a whole, but what she brought to that table, like, there's a realness there. There was a hole in the market for that level of realness. Like, what is the mother-daughter relationship like? How do I speak to my daughter about this? How do I speak about what works in my marriage, or what my children see works in my marriage and doesn't work? Like, how do I do that? And I think that we need more emphasis on that type of content.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you lost your dad, right? And this kind of brings us back like a few, but you started your journey at 6, lost your dad at 9, 10, and then went to college 6 years later. How do you compute all of those things happen in a very short amount of time to then being on your own and then living in an adult world?
That's powerful. So I think mortality salience, and I think Gwyneth Paltrow had something like this when her dad died. She wanted to just have a family. So I always wanted to be a mom, and I always wanted to have a family because I love my family so much. So, and I think I felt that my father living without kidneys and his illness, any day he could be taken from me. So I kind of lived with that. And I felt like he was just training me to be able to support my mother and my sister and myself in his absence. So for me, when he died, I have to say I was a little prepared for it, but wasn't prepared for it. And it was in that moment, I had a moment outside of his funeral where there were over 400 people who came because this chess team came 14th in the nation in 1994. So he died about 2 months after that national on my sister's birthday. Very insane. And he gave so much to the community. Locally and internationally, anything he could give, he gave. Again, because I think he was aware that his time was running out. And there were over 450 people that I saw in the book that signed. And I was pretty obnoxious because I had that comfort of two parents who I knew loved me regardless. So, I think we've all met those people who you're like, okay, there's protections around them because you're pretty awful. I was pretty awful as a child. Like, I mean, very. I think
in what way?
Meaning I felt like I was secretly angry about my father's illness, but I would say things and I had my peers tell me later, I'd be in class and I say, oh, well, my dad's going to come pick me up. A lot of them did not have active fathers. So they would be really sad.
You weren't aware of your privilege, or were you?
Some days I was. Some days
you
I
were
was.
aware of your grief at the same time.
Yes, I was. But some days I was. And I think I took it out of my cousins the hardest because we were all born in the same year. And when I moved here from Germany to Brooklyn, big culture shock.
Huge.
We kind of were feeling each other out and they were just like, we don't know. She's just very different. And to build up that wall, it was just kind of like, there was almost like an obnoxious superiority that I put out because I had these two parents. Well, he left and I said, who is going to love me now? And what am I going to do? And I said, you can make a choice right now. I was sitting in the limo outside of the church in Brooklyn Heights where his funeral was, our last church we went to as a family. And I said, you can either go left and people will completely understand. You can be dancing all sorts of places and doing all the fun things that you want to do. Or you can be like him and find Jesus, find him. You know, my dad died at 33. Wow. Jesus allegedly died at 33.
Yeah.
So I saw a lot of, I saw a lot of just signs that really pointed towards you've been given a lot. You have a very big purpose and you need to focus on that. So in that moment, I stopped cursing. I was 10 years old. I stopped cursing. I said, you're just going to fake it till you make it. You'll act just like your dad. You'll
How
be
much
kind.
cursing you was doing at 10?
A lot.
I was wondering that. I was like, what kind of curses you was doing?
We were talented. I went to a gifted school, so these kids had the vocabulary, and they would interlace these curses like you've never believed. I was like, wow.
Like a different language.
Yeah, there was a talent to that.
Yeah.
And I said, you're going to stop all of this, and you're going to live your life like Jesus would.
But I wonder, like, when I think about what you're saying about excellence and this word that you say that you live by, I feel like a lot of people, they're like, black excellence, black excellence. Sometimes it can be this sort of superiority. How do you then evolve that into a sort of spiritual excellence and kindness and these other sorts of things as you go along, especially while you're thinking, I gotta be excellent. But you gotta be an adolescent. Mm-hmm. You have to be a young adult. Mm-hmm. You have to be a young woman. Yep. It's like all those things. And then you're still trying to be excellent. How are you defining excellence for yourself throughout that whole journey?
First of all, I don't say black excellence. I just say excellence. I don't like throwing black in front of things.
Yeah.
There are moments where it does elevate the term, but a lot of times I feel like it almost makes it a little less than.
I agree.
If you understand what I'm saying. So I just say excellence. And excellence,
we'll come back to that.
Yes.
But yeah.
Excellence is the standard. So when my dad sat down with me for homework, if my homework was messy, it got balled up, thrown out, and we started again. Because he was like, you are not going to release anything with your name on it that does not have the standard that you did your best.
Did that make you feel good?
No.
Okay.
I
just making sure. Just for the record.
I hated
that
every
sounds
ounce
terrible.
of it. But when you think about that standard, excellence to me is really aiming towards being the best that you can, meaning doing the research, meaning maybe listening a little bit more, caring, having your to-do list, having your goals, your vision, your plans. And again, what are you doing when no one's watching? What type of work are you
doing when no one's around?
Yeah. What are you doing when no one's around? Like if a guest is coming to your house versus you're just in your house, are you cleaning it to a different standard? So it can be a little bit more work, but once it becomes your standard in everything that you do, it becomes your standard. And I want excellence is so important to me because I want us to understand that that's what we deserve. That's what's in us. And I want us to internalize that. So as we deserve it and receive it, that is what we are giving to each other, to ourselves, right? To our families and to the world. And there's an elevation that happens with that when that's your standard.
Does being a state assemblywoman require excellence? Bow, you saw how I
Oh,
did that.
yes, you brought it back.
So how I did that.
In this office, it does. Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Because I represent 135,000 people directly. And then we're also responsible for every New Yorker. So that's over 20 million people. So
explain to us what an assemblywoman does, because I know we talked a little bit about it. You're a public servant, not a politician.
Yes.
So when you say that you serve all these people and these New Yorkers, what do you do?
So
what can I ask you for?
Okay, what can you ask me for? That's a very good question, right? So, we have all these layers of government. I'll go really quick through it. We have the federal.
Now, give me civics class, because public school failed me.
Yeah.
I'm part of No Child Left Behind.
Glad you said that, because I have a law right now, PIG, Participation in Government, K through 12 mandate, where everyone learns how to be civically engaged because we want more people excited about the government. We want more people running for office and supporting campaigns, right? So, and then that cloud or that blanket that's over our heads, it's there by design. So we have to pull it off, right? So, but we have the federal government. So that's the president. We have the House of Representatives.
Yes, ma'am.
The U.S. Senate. And then underneath them comes the state. So we have the executive, which is the governor. And then we have the upper house, which is the Senate. I don't like that the Senate is in two layers because it can be very confusing.
It is very
you have to say, am I a state senator or am I a U.S. senator? Okay. So on the state level, you're a state senator. And then you have the People's House, which is considered the lower house. And that's the assembly. And there are about 150 of us. Okay. And they've divided all of the inhabitants of the state of New York into 150 districts from all the way out east in Long Island, that's District 1, to all the way west, which is about 5 hours from here, I think. That's District 150. We have about the same amount of people that we're responsible for, but the mileage can change, because when you go 5 hours from here, for you to get 130,000, 33,000 people, you're talking miles. But in the city, you could have maybe 4 blocks, 5 blocks,
Right.
So what we're responsible for on the state level is, first and foremost, constituent affairs. So people can call us for any issue. I have people who call me and say, hey, I lost my mom, or my cat's in a tree, or I hit a pothole, or my unemployment has stopped. The DMV is not being responsive. They can call us for anything. And we kind of are like fancy dispatchers, where we'll hold an issue. And if it's not something we directly control, we contact that office. And this is how my office operates. We contact that office and we stay with you through that issue until you say it's resolved. So that's what we do.
Are you enjoying the conversation? Please like and subscribe to our channel. Be sure to hit the bell for notifications and be the first to know when new episodes drop. Please comment below.
And then the other bucket is funding. We are responsible for the New York State budget. That's $227 billion this year. And we have to determine.
Let me hold something.
Listen, let me hold something.
No, let me hold something.
Where's this funding at, and how can we, how can we find that?
Send funding request letters. I'll find out who your assembly person is.
And this is all your office.
Yes, so my office is responsible for pieces of that. But all of us, all 63 senators and 150 assembly people, we all get together and determine the best way to allocate that $227 billion budget. So the executive has her budget that's released first. Then we go into negotiation to release ours. The Senate releases theirs. And then all of March, we sit and we debate and we negotiate, and there are quiet deals in this deal, and we'll pull this out, put that in. And our hope is to have an on-time budget, which means it passes by April 1st. And it is a very big deal, because $227 billion sounds like a lot of money, but there are 20 million of us living in this state.
Not in my house.
Education. Listen,
Right.
We have education, infrastructure, healthcare, housing. There's so much need. $227 billion can get cut up really, really quickly. And as many needs as we have, I don't think we have enough revenue streams. So we're working really hard on that. So those are my 2 buckets: constituent affairs, the budget, and then there's legislation, policy that dictates our everyday life. So some recent policy that we've passed and worked really hard to pass, the decriminalization of marijuana.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you. Everyone thanks you. My brother thanks you. My mom thanks you.
Yes, everybody. Because I feel like anything we touch is often rendered bad, especially if people can't make money off of it,
Right.
or whatever. And I just felt like so many families were destroyed because of the war on drugs, and that's still raging. So it's nice to see that we worked really hard for that. Something else that we worked really hard for was the Green Light Bill. I was very proud of that bill, because I feel like there are a lot of people who come from other countries and they have to work and they can't always get around, especially in the suburbs. They can't get driver's licenses because they're not documented.
Right.
So we allowed for undocumented individuals to have driver's licenses, which I felt was great, because that's
necessary.
It's a better pathway to citizenship, that they can work and do different things. So really progressive bills since I've come into the assembly. These were bills that for like 17, 20 years people were attempting to pass. And when I came in, there was a supermajority, meaning the governor, the Senate, and the assembly all had Democratic majority. And so we were just pass, like just passing bills.
Right.
It was great. I was like, oh, nothing's going to stop us now. We're going to make New York the greatest place ever. And then we know what happened in 2020.
Y'all hit toes.
Pandemic. Yes. And we were like, okay, so everyone
still trying to forget it.
Everyone might die. What do we do now? 2.5 years of no front facing and running a government.
What pressure did that put on your office?
Oh my goodness, it was insane. First of all, my community was very upset with me for being out in public. They were like, you don't need to put yourself at risk. What happens if something happens to you? But I look at our office as a first responder. We respond. We're first responders because I represent a community that has not been heard. I represent a community that's been disregarded for a long time. So this level of service that I'm able to provide is just the best thing ever, so many of them have my cell phone number so that I can really be at the source of any issue and resolve it quickly. My team is called Team Excellence. And we hit that we're very big on branding and marketing. And it was a lot of pressure because we didn't know what was going to happen day to day. We were literally hearing people were dropping dead because I represent a lot of people who work in the service industry.
Wow.
So whereas a lot of individuals had jobs in different parts of my district where they could stay home and they had huge backyards and they could distance themselves, who are the people who were bringing us food? Who are the people in the supermarkets? Who are the people at the post office? I represent a lot of those individuals. So they would come home living in a multi-generational home and they would infect everybody, and people were literally dying. And then you have the health disparities or the issues of being undocumented. They didn't want to go get health care. They didn't trust it. They didn't, especially under that administration.
How did that affect you personally?
I was literally
going,
about to ask
going
that.
to older folks' home and then the next day they're gone. Like, how
Like,
does
what did
that...
you do to take care of yourself in that time?
Right.
I got pregnant.
Because
I said,
pandemic
Wait,
baby.
what?
I said, that's the end. It's the end of the world. We should bring people in
Wait,
here.
I wasn't prepared for that.
Yes, yes, I did.
Let's bring somebody.
Yes,
here.
yes, we need a hero. We're gonna birth this hero. So we had baby Lord during that time, and I tell everyone that was my last opportunity to have a child because of how busy my schedule is and the type of parenting that I like to provide. So we were able to have this son I wanted since I was 5 years old. I used to have a doll who looked just like him, and I'd pray every day this doll came to life, and he looks just like the baby doll. And so baby Lord is here. So being pregnant kind of protected me, and it gave me something to look forward to.
I got a specific question. How do the areas that are gentrified and the areas that are not gentrified respond to the things that your office does?
So I live in a very, very interesting community. So we have, I'll use the village of Hempstead. And the village of Hempstead used to be a thriving, bustling place for minorities, like thriving. People would come out from the city to shop in Hempstead. White flight happened, and the federal government decided that this should be a place to receive a lot of people seeking asylum from Central America. A lot of people came there, and resources were not bought there. Again, all by design. They did not enjoy that this was a minority community that was thriving, right? Not even a stone's throw away, this place is surrounded by communities that are, I would call them utopias, because I think anyone can have a beautiful house in the suburbs that's far away from everything, right? Anyone could build a house. Not anyone can build one, but there can always be houses like that. This place is so unique that it is in the middle of everything. Like, you're like 1 minute away from the largest, the 10th largest mall based on leasable selling space in the country. It might be higher because so many malls are closing now. You are able to access, Target, the trains. You can get to the city in about 35 minutes.
You talking about Roosevelt?
I'm talking about Garden City.
Garden City. Okay.
That disparity is so, you can taste it, you can see it, you can feel it. You can almost drive on the roads, close your eyes. You'll know when you're in Hempstead, and you'll know when you arrive to Garden City.
Wow.
Different grass. They're not allowed to have gates in their front yards, so there's a continuity of front lawn space, so it all reads like
Manicured.
one lawn. Yes. Cohesive business awnings. It is a beautiful space. And I asked my parents when we moved from Bedford-Stuyvesant, did you miss Garden City when it was time for us to live here? I said, was this not? And they looked at me like, did you miss part of the down payment on a house? You're confused about how our budget's working, how our budget's lined up. But I said, why? It's almost like an invisible fence. I said, why is this not the standard for everybody? So when you speak about gentrification in Long Island, they have done so well with redlining. They've done so well with keeping homogenous neighborhoods. There is a term I want you all to take with you today. It's a nice way of saying we don't want other people here. It's we want to protect the integrity of our community.
I've heard that.
Yep.
So I use it all the time now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want that because I want to protect the integrity of my community.
Yeah.
They teach you, they lay out the blueprint, and they'll let you know. They'll pay the fines to keep people out because they want to protect the integrity. And they've done a phenomenal job doing that, because I'm telling you right now, I don't think I know one person of color. Actually, I know one person of color who lives in Garden City. And I have part of Garden City in my district. So the gentrified areas, it is really sad. And I keep informing people, if we are not taking care of each other, these people aren't going to steal from each other. They're going to steal from people who have. So this is everybody's problem, making sure that those inequities and those holes and vacancies are filled to the best of our abilities, because hungry people are not going to to stay hungry. That's not what we do.
I want to shift for a little bit from Assemblywoman Taylor Darling to back to the person. And I want to ask you, because you have this team excellence and excellent, but there has to be times in your life where you were really just your worst self. And I want to talk a little bit about those Taylors, how you loved her, moments that you met her, that you were like, wait, this is not the Taylor that was sitting in the limo, like, I'm going to be the next Martin Luther King Jr. Really take me through that. Like those moments, at 16, because I know myself, those moments that I've reached that I was like, are we still here with one another? Is this my highest self? Is this my best self?
True. Okay. So I knew I had to do well to ease the burden on my mother's shoulders. Living with a widow, especially one who was so connected to my father, that was a hard space to be in. Yeah. She was financially available, but she was not emotionally available because she just could not be for a lot of times. So I knew I had to do everything just right so she could at least say everything didn't fall to crap in my life. So
that's the pressure you felt.
That was
that was the narrative.
Yes, it was almost like a purpose. I didn't feel a pressure. I felt a purpose, but she wouldn't wouldn't let me go to parties. She wouldn't let me out of her sight. She was very fear based after losing before and after losing my father. Yeah. So she actually forbid me to go to Spelman because she said I was 16. It was 900 and something miles away. So she said, "Yep, that's why I wanted. That was my motivation."
You was trying to dance with Uncle Luke.
I'm from Atlanta. I know what's happened in the 90s. I'm only 26, but I know. I said 96 Atlanta. What's going on there?
Listen.
Mama.
I think my mom had it shut down.
I know
right before I came there because I was not there when I came in the aftermath. It was very sad. But that was my yes, I was.
You was trying
yes,
to
I was,
Brown.
Mike. I was trying to do that. So I had plans to be down in Atlanta, and she said no. And my school, where I was like president of everything. I mean, I'm getting pulled out the office to make decisions with the superintendent for the superintendent.
I love that.
Yeah, it was great until I wanted to run for Miss Uniondale, and they literally said, "We're not going to let you advance to the next level because you're running a dictatorship here." And my mother, who worked in the district, was like, "Wait a minute. They can use your advice. They can, parade you around any other time, but they're not even going to let the student body vote to see if you're going to be Miss Uniondale. I will not stand in your way. You go ahead and apply to Spelman." I was like, yes, because I was thinking about forging her signature anyway. I was going to Spelman College. Yeah. And I wanted that experience so bad. And so when I got there, I didn't drink. I was
super straight edge.
Celibate, yep. Still not cursing. I never did drugs. I was very much like, I'm going to get married. I'm going to build a house. I'm going to cook, clean, and be the best wife ever because I wanted to have this family so bad. And so I didn't reach that sad part or those low parts of my life until after I got married very young, and I felt very
What age?
I was 21, 22.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was in grad school at 19, and I got into a doctoral program at 19. So my mom kept saying to me, "Oh, you can't get married until you're done with school." Yeah. I was done with school at 19 years old, so I was able to do that. So I got married very young, and he was very supportive of my doctoral career, but very withdrawn in his own space, and I just felt very lonely, and I felt like this was not how I wanted this to go. And then my grad program, here's where we get low. Horrible.
Take me there.
Horrible. I would cry in the car every single day. I was spending about $4,000 a minute to be in that program.
Do you have an audio podcast? Are you looking to grow your audience? Partner with Prosper Digital TV, a virtual and full-service video production company. Visit www.prosperdigital.tv or call 718-622-0062 to get started today.
And they really didn't.
This was your psychology program?
Clinical psych. Yep. And as great as I was doing in the program academically, they kept saying, you have too much color, or you don't read like a psychologist, and you're not. I wasn't stoic enough. I wasn't cold enough. It's clinical. I wasn't clinical enough because I think counseling and family psychology probably was a better fit. But I went wherever they would accept me at 19 years old, right, with my limited experience. So I hated that program. I did 3 years in that program. I kept saying you just have to be a doctor by 25. I was had 2 more years. My mother became ill. And she was very secretive about it. So she, was in the hospital and she said, oh, it's no big deal. I was hospitalized. My mother's never was hospitalized. So I said, this is my way out because I don't quit. But I said, I told my husband at the time, I said, let's pack up. We're leaving. We're going to go move up to New York. And we moved away from each other for about 8 months. I was up with my mother, all those power struggles. It was a dark time to go back home, be reminded of my father. Because in Atlanta, my father wasn't there. There were no memories.
It was a different environment.
I was in New York losing my mind. I mean, I found the club scene because I was finally old enough to go to clubs. Yeah. I found a lot of things as a new mom, as a new wife. I was not making the best decisions or choices to build the foundation that was so important to me. I was fighting for my life, and the recession happened in 2008, and I had gone to Hofstra, got my master's in between because I'd left that other program, and my marriage eventually failed. I don't even like that word, failed. My marriage eventually ended, because I didn't know the work required. I wasn't doing the work required, and I was still dealing with the grief of my father dying and my mother. She was diagnosed with lung cancer when I came home. So I was like, goodness, what are the odds that both your parents get these terminal illnesses? And it's really sad. So she had 5 years left and she died to the 5th year, just like my father was given a prognosis. He wouldn't live longer than 5 years. And so very low times. And I moved to Tribeca for 2 years. I always wanted to rent in the city. And, we gave the marriage another shot. It did not work. It ended. And I came back out and I just felt like, after she died, which was right after Sandy. Sandy happened in October. My mother died the day after my birthday. And if you remember, my father died on my sister's birthday. Wow. My mother died the day. That's how close we were, right? Wow. So my mom dies the day after my birthday, and that's how strong she was. She did not want to die on my birthday. But I was like, what am I going to do? My power was gone. Like, it was like I let these high net worth individuals treat me like crap.
Yeah. Take your time.
And it's like, you don't realize you lose your power. You lost your power. Right. If someone's not there to tell you. And it was so
And your parents' voices were those voices for your life.
They were there. And I just knew that. I was like, I'm just going to buckle down. Like, I have to now be financially independent. I was always taken care of financially. And I said, what am I going to do as I'm powerless? So in my lowest of low, I didn't take pictures. I didn't really care for myself. I was just very focused on my daughter. I was very focused on healing and grabbing onto anything to help me get through the severe depression that I was going through, losing the two most important people in my life in such tragic ways. So flash forward, in 2017, I took a job with someone who literally was abusing me. Like, talk about losing power. Like, people were like, we can't believe that you've been able to sit in this space. Like, he would throw things at me and yell at me and just make me feel like less than. And I just said, you know what? I am making this man so much money because I'm supporting him in all his businesses, but I'm not serving my community. This is not what God has given me, all of these gifts and these experiences to do. I've been through enough trauma to be able to relate to people. I've been through enough amazing experiences. I've hit milestones that I never thought I would hit. I said, how are you going to change this? So in January of 2018, I did my first Daniel fast. Are you guys familiar with the Daniel fast?
I just finished
our last gets to do fast as well.
So I literally just finished.
Thank you so much.
I finished a 21 day, my 4th time. Yes. This is the most successful. I didn't break it.
Yes.
And this was, listen.
Can y'all explain what it is? I have no idea what a Daniel
go
fast
ahead.
is.
I'll finish the story. You can explain the fast.
Yes.
Okay. So January 2018, I finally found a church out in Long Island because my church in Georgia was so important to me. And they said, let's do a corporate fast. So I joined the church. And the man who prayed me into the church, he had my father's name. My dad's name is Ralston. Wow. I've never met anyone named Ralston.
Never. No, I've never.
I don't even know where that name came from.
So God was right there with you.
And I said, what's your name? He said, well, he had to say it 4 times. And I said, wow, thanks. I'm always looking for signs. So he praised me into the church. And my pastor, Pastor Damon, who's incredible, he's in Chicago now, he goes, okay, we're going to do a corporate fast. And when you do it corporately, the movements in your life are like magnified because it's a fellowship. It's a togetherness.
It's agreement.
Exactly. So we do this fast for 21 days. And my life just changed. My eyes were open. I had a trip planned to Santorini that September of 2018. A voice said, move it to March. I was like, March? It's cold. I'm windy. I'm going to blow up a mountain. Right. Why am I moving this to March? Didn't even ask too many questions. Just moved the trip to March. I, got some professional coaches or some business coaches to come and talk to my client and things were really looking up, right?
Right.
May of 2018, and I'm walking through my living room. My sister was dating the former village of Hempstead, the mayor. She was dating his son, the former mayor of the village of Hempstead. She was dating his son, and he had to find someone to potentially run against someone who was not representing the community in the way we wanted to be represented.
Wow.
And mind you, I started that year saying, I have to do more
For the community.
And I'm walking past, literally in my living room. And my sister goes, why don't you just choose Taylor? I keep telling you, choose Taylor. She'll be an amazing elected official. And he was like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm right here. But so he submits my name. I think we had 10 minutes, submits my name. I get vetted. And the rest is history. We run against a 30-year incumbent, one of the most powerful women in the state of New York.
Wow.
And I have no community recognition because I've left that community. I never really integrated back into the community once I moved back from the city in Atlanta. I never integrated back. So my name was different from my maiden name. So people really didn't know who I was. So I had to get buy-in on top of buy-in. I was campaigning 17 hours a day. And let me tell you, my client fired me the next day after I told him that I was going to run. So I was in a great space financially by myself for the first time. And it all came crashing down because I could not work, because I had to campaign. I could not get unemployment because that looks crazy for you to be running for office, receiving state funds. I couldn't go on social services to feed my children. It was all my family. I was relying on my family and I'm still paying people back. I think I'm cleared in 2025. But so much goes into that space of losing your power and then finding your power. And that September trip that I had to change, the primary was in September. There would have been no way I could have gone to Santorini, which was a biblical experience for me because it was the first space that I was in where I didn't feel the loss of
Grief.
my parents.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the first space. I have it tattooed on my arm. So to remember I was going to live there. I was moving there for 6 months and this opportunity came and we have changed the face of government. We've changed the face of public service. I don't think we realize the scale that we've done it, my team and I, but no one's ever governed.
Can I just say, I wanted to ask you earlier. I'm sorry.
I just have to explain the fast.
I just want to say, first of all, and this is just as an aside, I'm really proud of you. And I mean, this is like,
thank you.
I was proud of you just being like, oh, look at this bio. It's like, oh, excellent, the chess master. But this is like, I'm proud of you because I think a lot of people need to hear, and I need to hear that moment really when you first are running to be like, actually, I gave up my financial power. Because a lot of people, that's when you're most visible, when you're on posters, people are thinking, oh, that's when you've made it. You're thinking that's when you've made it, but actually you're knowing of your own financial situation, the sacrifice that you're giving. You sacrificed for us.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
So thank you. I'm proud of you.
When you put it that way, I would do it again and again. And thank you.
Girl, I know. Because you're my sister.
Yes.
Like,
and you guys are worth it. And like I said, listen, money is a tool and a resource. I said, God is going to sustain me and give me everything I need. I haven't had one hungry day. That wasn't intentional. I haven't had one hungry day. My children thrive. Everything's great. And I remarried.
Skin glowing.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Blazer on 10.
Listen.
Hair on fleek.
It's the ring for me.
Right.
I'm still on the ring.
Yes.
Girl.
I said, listen. Now I could sell this ring and actually be done paying off everybody. But no, listen. We are going to enjoy the wins, and that's another big message. Celebrating the wins when they happen. Now, my husband and I differ in this. He says that Black people sometimes celebrate too much. We'll be like, oh, we made it out of class today. We're gonna go dance. No, but I said,
don't go to New Orleans because
they celebrate everything, right?
Everything.
But we have to celebrate.
We have to. There's so much grief.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. We have to celebrate the wins. And I have to tell my daughters that you have to celebrate the wins. This is not light. You guys being here as hosts, this is not light. So many people don't have a voice at all. You guys have a microphone. You know what I mean? That's a big deal. Like we can't take these things for granted at all. And I have to say that I vow in this space to never think of this seat as mine. It is a seat that I serve in right now. They say that's the kiss of death in life. When you feel like an elected official's seat is yours. Like if I say, I'm the Assemblywoman, this is my seat, that's the kiss of death. Because the reality is we have to be grooming those next several people to come and take that seat. Because we don't have the space to pause. We don't have the space to take a break. We don't have the space to leave with your grandparents. like your grandparents. There should be like 4 or 5 other relationships for you to model after that.
So,
it can't just stop. We can never stop. Like that ain't no stopping us now. Those songs meant something. They mean something. Like we don't have the space to stop. So, poverty or not, I had to keep going through it. It was like I'd gone too far to come back.
Yeah.
And now it's great to be in this space where, again, I get to sit with beautiful individuals like you who I would not have met, in any other realm again.
I think one of the interesting things you said, because your story is so beautiful,
Thank you.
from beginning to end. And one of the things that stuck out to me that I really want to go back to was you, before you said you went to Spelman, he made a joke about, Freaknik and all of these things.
Yes.
I was like, all through your story, I was wondering, like, when were you a kid? Because your dad was like so strict. And he was trying to, like, you were always about achieving professional and academic excellence. But when were you a kid? Because along this whole, and I want to know, because I'm still trying to find some things, but also I want the younger generations to know, like, when you're achieving excellence, when do you have to create, like, when is it time to create balance? Because I think balance is so necessary, and maybe we cause ourselves certain heartache and stress and things in life because we didn't create balance, or maybe the structure that we were born into didn't create balance for us.
Definitely true. So I will say this, my childhood was filled with a lot of fun as well.
Okay,
so
great.
The learning was fun.
To hear that.
So I love what Madonna. I loved, Michael Jackson. So there was a lot of me performing and him filming me. I was a child model and a child actress for a little while. Fun fact, I was up for the role in Crooklyn.
Now you can't brush past that.
Yes,
That's a big deal.
That's crazy.
My aunt is Lisa Fisher, who used to live over here, who she sang backup for the Rolling Stones forever.
Wow.
Luther Vandross forever. So when you hear his songs, that's her background vocals.
Wow. So you have an artistic family,
yes,
too.
very artistic.
Wow.
So I was able to tour with the Rolling Stones and Luther Vandross.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah. You know what? I had big deal experiences.
Yeah.
So,
You caught yourself there because you was like, I am.
No,
You
Go and dust your shoulders
big deal
off.
experiences.
You were like, I shouldn't say that. I had big deal experiences.
Big deal experiences. So no, but we had such an amazing. The funniest thing, I remember when my dad had actually just died, and my mom was like, "Okay, we're going on tour with the Stones." We had a police escort through the streets of Philadelphia.
Wow.
We're just dancing on top. Mick Jagger's like, we're hanging out with Mick Jagger. We had a lot of amazing fun experiences. They did a really good job making sure that we had a childhood. We were protected from a lot of things. Chess afforded us a lot of traveling because we would have to compete. So fun fact, I've been to all 50 states.
Wow.
Yeah. So I sat down one
Are you
day.
going to be president? Please let me find out. Please let me find out.
Don't
I'm
know
with
that.
Michelle, the
I
next
don't even know if
Michelle. Child.
Has he even been
Is Joe
here?
Biden here? I don't know.
Can he
Joseph
name that?
Biden was not.
I
Love
know.
you, Joe.
Can he name that?
But yeah, so I sat down one day and I wrote down, and I was at 30 states, and I said, ooh, let's add that to the legacy.
Yeah.
I want to finish all 50. So during the pandemic, we finished our Washington State was our last state. It was so dope to be able to go to all 50 states.
Wow.
So my children, now I'm part of a little club. I got a certificate. I have a pin that I wear on my denim jacket. So, and my husband has one more continent to travel to.
Wow.
Antarctica. So we're working to get him there.
That's
I said,
wonderful.
if we're on a cruise, I'm just going to rope him down so he can touch it. It doesn't count unless you touch the ground. So we're trying to figure this out. We'll be scientists for the day or something. But I love to have those goals where it's like these are things and fun experiences to have.
Those are fun goals.
Yeah, fun goals.
I love that.
Yeah, fun goals.
Yeah.
So I would never want to paint a picture that I've been all academic. I really don't enjoy academics at all. I enjoy learning. I don't enjoy our educational structure. I think we're taught at more than we're taught. Like, those teachers who really work to make sure that the knowledge that you receive is applied.
Right.
Those were my favorite types of learning experiences.
You retain that a little bit. I believe you retain
do.
it more.
You do, because you can apply it.
So the final nugget is where I'll ask one question. Well, today I'm going to ask one straightforward question.
Okay.
And then I'm going to hit you with about 5 rapid questions.
Love it.
That just requires a one-word response.
Okay.
Okay. What's a piece of advice you would say to your younger self?
Pay attention to money management. Pay attention to money. Don't shy away from finances. Don't be scared of that. I would definitely say that, because it's a tool and it's an important tool. And even if someone's taking care of you, pay attention to money management. Learn how to invest. Learn everything they don't want you to know.
Got it. Rapid fire questions.
Okay.
The path to success is paved with
Love.
My mind is,
On my money.
well,
Child.
Period.
a person's greatest tool is,
Patience.
I wish the world was more.
Loving.
Tomorrow I will be.
Happy.
Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your nuggets. And before we go, could you let us know where we can find you, where we could support you, where we could follow you?
Good question. So my Instagram is my favorite platform. So I am Taylor Darling. That's my Instagram handle. I do have a Twitter. God bless it. Facebook makes me very depressed. And I do have a YouTube channel for the Tuesdays with Taylor's episodes because they're so long. They can be a little lengthy.
And that's just Tuesdays with Taylor.
Yep, Tuesdays with Taylor. Yep. So, but I am Taylor Darling. The Instagram people really seem to enjoy it. It's pretty engaging. So please go on there. And then we have our link tree so you can see how you can be part of the volunteer experience, the campaign experience, and support us in a bunch of different ways. So.
And before you run for president, when's your next election around here? I'm gonna call you on it.
Oh God, it's when is this? 2024. Every other year we have to run.
2024.
Yeah, we're running for our
Okay.
lives. Yes,
Girl, I will move to where you live and vote you
I
up.
love
Vote
it.
you
I love
up.
it.
So thank you all so much for watching The Nugget, and you guys can follow us, and we'll see you next time.